I didn't count the days I was deployed. I didn't count the miles I marched. I only counted the holes in my son's chest. 47. The coroner called it a frenzy. The police called it a tragedy. But I looked at the wounds, and I knew better. This was a message. They thought they were butchering a sheep. They didn't know they were waking up the wolf. And now, the hunting season is open. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. The air in the morgue was colder than any winter I had faced in the mountains of Afghanistan. It was a sterilized, chemical chill that settled deep in your bones. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, an annoying, rhythmic hum that drilled into my skull. I stood there, hands clasped behind my back, staring at the white sheet on the stainless steel table. I hadn't shed a tear. Not one. Tears are for people who have accepted loss. I hadn't accepted anything yet. I was in operator mode. Respectful. Disciplined. Deadly calm. Mr. Hunter, the coroner said softly. He was a small, nervous man, shifting his weight from foot to foot. He didn't want to show a father what was under that sheet. You don't have to do this. The police have processed everything. You can remember him how he was. I didn't look at him. My eyes were locked on the shape of the body. Pull it back. My voice sounded like gravel grinding together. Sir, the damage is extreme. I have seen things that would make you quit your job and never sleep again, I said flatly. Pull it back. The coroner hesitated, his hand trembling, but he peeled the sheet down to the waist. For a second, the world tilted. That was my boy, Evan. He was 18. He had my chin, his mother's nose. He was supposed to start college in the fall to be an architect. He was gentle. He built things. He didn't destroy them. Now, his chest was a ruin. I forced my brain to switch gears. I leaned in, ignoring the smell of dried blood. I wasn't looking at my son anymore. I was analyzing a target. 47 stab wounds, I whispered. Yes, the coroner noted, checking his clipboard. Most were post-mortem. It was overkill. Pure rage. I shook my head slowly. No. Look at the angles. I pointed to a mess of cuts near the ribs. These are jagged. Shallow. Hesitant. The person holding the knife here was weak, maybe scared. But these. I pointed to 3 deep, precise punctures near the heart. Vertical entry. Twist. Pull. That's professional. That's military efficiency. The coroner stared at me, mouth slightly open. He saw a mess. I saw a tactical map. There were 2 of them, I said, straightening up. Maybe 3. One held him. One panicked. One finished the job with precision. This wasn't a mugging. The police report says robbery, the coroner stammered. He was in a bad neighborhood, down by the docks. Evan never went to the docks, I said, pulling the sheet back over my son's face. He hated the water. I walked out into the harsh daylight. The city looked the same, people drinking coffee, laughing at phones, but it felt alien. The world had ended, and nobody knew it. A detective was waiting by my truck. Tall, expensive suit, chewing on a toothpick. He didn't look like a man investigating a brutal murder. He looked like a man waiting for lunch. Mr. Hunter? He asked. Detective Julian. I'm lead on the case. I sized him up instantly. Soft hands. Shifty eyes that checked the street behind me instead of meeting my gaze. You wrote the report saying it was a robbery, I said. Julian shrugged. Rough part of town. Kids go down there to buy drugs. Meet girls. Trouble finds them. Wallet was empty. Classic smash and grab. My son didn't do drugs, I said, stepping into his personal space. He flinched. And his wallet was empty because he never carried cash. He used Apple Pay. Check his phone. Phone was missing, Julian said too quickly. Look, I know you're hurting. You're military, right? Thank you for your service. But let us handle the police work. Go home. Be with your wife. She's a wreck. He was dismissing me. He wanted this case filed and forgotten. 47 times, I said. Excuse me. You don't stab someone 47 times for an empty wallet, I said quietly. That's personal. That's hate. Or it's a warning. Julian's eyes narrowed. The friendly cop mask slipped, revealing something cold. "Don't play detective, Mr. Hunter. You'll just get in the way." He got in his unmarked car and drove off. I memorized the plate, KLP 892. I drove home, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Julian was either incompetent or involved. My gut screamed the latter. I unlocked my front door to silence. The heavy, suffocating kind. Natalie. My wife appeared from the kitchen. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the 6 months I was gone. Her blonde hair was messy, eyes swollen. She didn't run to me. She stayed by the island, trembling. I wrapped my arms around her. She felt fragile, like a bird with hollow bones, but she was stiff, tense. "I saw him," I said softly. "I saw Evan." She shuddered violently. "Don't," she sobbed. "Don't talk about it. Please. The police are useless," I told her, pulling back. "Detective Julian is calling it a robbery. But I saw the wounds, Nat. It wasn't random." Natalie's eyes darted to the floor. "Hunter, stop. Just stop. It won't bring him back. We have to. We have to accept it." "Accept it?" I frowned. "Someone butchered our son. I just want peace," she screamed, pulling away. "I can't have you playing soldier. It's dangerous." "The danger already came to our house, Natalie. It took our son. What are you afraid of?" For a second, I saw pure terror in her eyes. "I just want to leave," she whispered. "I booked tickets to your sister's in Ohio. We leave after the funeral. We sell the house." "Run away?" I asked, disbelief washing over me. "We bury him and run. There is nothing left for us here." Her phone buzzed on the counter. She snatched it up instantly, a reflex, fast and desperate. She looked at the screen and flipped it face down. "Who is that?" I asked. "My mother," she lied. I knew it was a lie. I've interrogated insurgents and spies. I know the micro-expressions. "Your mother calls the landline," I said calmly. "She's worried." Natalie snapped, backing away. "I'm going to shower. Just focus on the funeral." She practically ran upstairs, taking the phone with her. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the water turn on. I looked around. The floor was spotless, except for one spot near the back door. A faint smudge of mud. I crouched down. It was a boot print. Size 12, maybe 13. I wear an 11. I touched the mud. Dry, crusted. Someone big had been in here recently. And the lock on the back door wasn't broken. They had a key. The next morning, the funeral was a blur of black suits and empty words. I stood by the open grave as the closed casket was lowered. Detective Julian had insisted on closed casket. Natalie had agreed instantly. I scanned the cemetery. Tactical awareness never turns off. And then I saw it. About 100 yards away, on a service road, a black SUV with tinted windows was idling. I narrowed my eyes, shifting position behind a tombstone. The window rolled down an inch. I saw the glint of a lens. They were watching us. I looked at Natalie. She was standing next to the priest, head bowed. Her hand was in her coat pocket. I saw the movement of her thumb. She was texting. At her own son's funeral, while his coffin hit the dirt, she was texting. A cold rage settled in my chest. Grief is hot. This was ice. Sharp. Useful. I looked back at the SUV. The window rolled up, and it drove away slowly. They thought they were watching a broken man. They thought the family was destroyed. They were wrong. I reached into my pocket, touching the handle of my knife. I wasn't going to Ohio. I wasn't selling the house. I watched the dirt cover the wood. Rest easy, son, I thought. Dad is home, and I'm going to work. The drive back from the cemetery was silent. Natalie stared out the window, her knuckles white as she gripped her purse. She was still trembling, a subtle vibration that I could feel even from the driver's seat. I didn't say a word. I just drove, my eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. The black SUV was gone, but the feeling of being watched remained. It was a familiar sensation, the prickle on the back of your neck that tells you you're in the kill zone. When we got home, Natalie went straight upstairs. "I need to lie down," she mumbled, not looking at me. "I have a migraine." "Take your time," I said. My voice was calm, steady, the voice of a supportive husband. But inside, I was already calculating angles of entry and exit. As soon as her bedroom door clicked shut, I moved. I went to the garage and pulled down a heavy plastic bin from the top shelf. It was labeled camping gear. It wasn't camping gear. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were the tools of my trade. A signal jammer, a high-frequency audio bug detector, a lockpick set, and my laptop, a military-grade machine with encryption that would make the NSA sweat. I took the bug detector and started a sweep of the house. I moved room to room, the device silent in my hand. Kitchen, clear. Living room, clear. I went to Evan's room. I hadn't been in there since I got back. It smelled like him, deodorant and stale pizza. His posters were still on the wall. His unmade bed. It felt like walking into a shrine. I swallowed the lump in my throat and raised the detector. It beeped. A sharp, high-pitched chirp. I froze. I followed the signal to the desk lamp. I unscrewed the base. There it was. A tiny, black listening device. It was sophisticated, battery-powered, transmitting on a low frequency. I didn't destroy it. If I broke it, they would know I found it. Instead, I left it exactly where it was. Let them listen. They would only hear what I wanted them to hear. But this confirmed everything. This wasn't just a murder. This was an operation. My house was compromised. My family was compromised. I sat at Evan's desk and booted up my laptop. I needed to see the crime scene myself. The real scene. Not the sanitized version Detective Julian had put in his report. I waited until midnight. Natalie was asleep, or pretending to be. I changed into dark clothes, black cargo pants, a hoodie, boots. I slipped out the back door, avoiding the squeaky floorboard on the porch. I didn't take my truck. Too loud. Too noticeable. I ran. 3 miles to the docks. I moved through the shadows, sticking to the alleyways, just like I did in Kandahar. My breathing was steady. My heart rate was low. I was hunting. The alley where they found Evan was taped off with yellow police tape, but it was sagging and torn. Nobody was guarding it. Why would they? To Julian, the case was already closed. I ducked under the tape and turned on my tactical flashlight. I kept the beam low, sweeping the ground. The rain had washed away most of the blood, but the stains were still there, dark patches on the concrete. I crouched down. I replayed the coroner's words in my head. 47 stab wounds. I looked at the walls. There were scuff marks on the brick about 5 feet up. A struggle. Someone had been slammed into this wall. Hard. I scanned the ground again. The police had cleared the obvious stuff, but cops like Julian are lazy. They grab the big pieces and ignore the dust. I moved to a storm drain a few feet away from the bloodstain. It was clogged with trash and mud. I shone my light into the grate. Something glittered. It wasn't much, just a tiny flash of copper in the muck. I pulled out my knife and pried the grate open. It groaned, rusted metal grinding against stone. I reached into the slime, my fingers closing around the object. It was a small SD card, the kind that goes in a GoPro or a dash cam. It had been stepped on, pressed into the mud. The plastic casing was cracked, but the chip inside looked intact. "Got you," I whispered. Evan didn't have a camera, but he always carried a voice recorder. He used it for his architecture classes, to record lectures and ideas. He kept it in his pocket. The police hadn't found a recorder. The killers must have taken it. But maybe, just maybe, Evan had popped the card out before they took it. Maybe he dropped it. Suddenly, headlights swept across the alley entrance. I killed my light instantly and pressed myself into the shadows of a dumpster. A car rolled slowly past the alley. It was a patrol car, but it didn't look like a normal patrol. It was driving too slow. No lights on top. I held my breath. The car paused. The window rolled down. A hand came out, flicked a cigarette but onto the street, and the car moved on. I waited a full 2 minutes before moving. They were patrolling the site. That meant they were worried something had been left behind. I slipped out the other side of the alley and ran home. Back in the garage, I cleaned the SD card with rubbing alcohol and a microfiber cloth. I inserted it into my laptop. My heart hammered against my ribs. Please work. Please work. The screen flickered. Drive damaged. Attempting recovery. I typed in a command line, bypassing the standard error messages. I forced the drive to mount. A progress bar appeared. 10%, 40%, 80%. Recovery complete. There was one file. An audio file. Time-stamped the night Evan died. I put on my headphones. My finger hovered over the play button. I didn't want to hear this. No father should ever have to hear his son die. But I had to know. I pressed play. Static. Then footsteps. Fast, heavy footsteps. Panting. Please. I don't have anything. It was Evan's voice. Terrified. Shaking. Shut up, kid. A deep, gravelly voice. Male. Older. Hold him against the wall. Grab his arms. A second voice. Younger, higher-pitched. Nervous. Why are you doing this? Evan screamed. I didn't tell anyone. I swear. I froze. I didn't tell anyone. Tell anyone what? There was a sound of a struggle. Fabric tearing. A sickening thud. You shouldn't have seen what you saw, little man, the deep voice said. Victor doesn't like loose ends. And your mommy? She should have taught you to mind your own business. My blood turned to ice. Your mommy. Then, the sounds of violence began. I won't describe them. I can't. I listened to every second of it. I forced myself to witness my son's pain because I needed to hate these men enough to kill them slowly. Then laughter. The deep voice was laughing. A low, cruel chuckle. 40, 41, 42. The younger voice was counting. He sounded sick, breathless. Is he dead yet? He's got to be dead. Keep going, the deep voice commanded. Make a mess. Make it look like the gangs did it. Then, a new sound. A ringtone. From the killer's pocket. The deep voice answered. Yeah? It's done? Yeah, the kid is gone. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. She thinks he's at the library. Don't worry, boss. The husband is overseas. He won't know anything until he comes back to a closed casket. He hung up. Let's go. Leave the knife. Julian will take care of the cleanup. The recording ended with the sound of running footsteps and the distant wail of a siren. I sat in the dark garage, the silence ringing in my ears. I took off the headphones and laid them gently on the desk. It wasn't a robbery. It was a hit, ordered by someone named Victor, covered up by Detective Julian. And Natalie, your mommy should have taught you to mind your own business. I felt sick, physically ill. My wife was involved. My son had seen something related to her, and he was killed for it. I closed the laptop. I had a name now, Victor, and I had a confirmation on Julian. But I needed a face. I pulled up the audio file again. I isolated the deep voice. I ran it through a spectral analyzer software I had acquired from my last deployment. It matched voice prints against public databases. It took 10 minutes. Match found. 98% probability. Name, Grant the Butcher Kowalski. Affiliation, Lieutenant for the Victor Vane Crime Syndicate. Last known location, the Velvet Lounge, downtown. I stared at the photo that popped up on the screen. A bald man with a scar running through his eyebrow. I memorized his face. I memorized the shape of his skull. I stood up. The sun was starting to come up. The funeral was yesterday. Today was day one of the war. I walked into the kitchen. Natalie was there, making coffee. She jumped when I walked in. Hunter, she breathed. You scared me. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, I said. I walked over to the coffee pot. I poured a cup, my back to her. I was thinking about what you said. About moving to Ohio. She brightened immediately. Really? You think it's a good idea? Maybe, I said, turning to face her. I took a sip of coffee. But I need a few days to settle affairs here. Pack up Evan's room. I can pack it, she said quickly. You don't have to go in there. It's too painful. I'll do it. She wanted to purge the evidence. She wanted to throw away anything he might have hidden. No, I said. I need to do it. For closure. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Just hurry. I want to be gone by the weekend. We will be, I promised. I wasn't lying. By the weekend, this would all be over. One way or another. I'm going out for a while, I said, putting the mug down. Where? Her eyes narrowed. Suspicious. To the police station, I said. I want to apologize to Detective Julian. Tell him I was emotional yesterday. Tell him we're closing the case and moving. Natalie exhaled, a long sigh of relief. That's good, Hunter. That's really good. Don't make waves. Let's just move on. I won't make waves, I said, grabbing my keys. I walked out the door. I got into my truck. I wasn't going to the police station. I was going to the Velvet Lounge. Grant, the butcher, Kowalski was about to have a very bad day. The Velvet Lounge was the kind of place that looked expensive but smelled like cheap cologne and desperation. It was noon, so the club was closed, but I knew the rats would still be in their nest. I parked 3 blocks away in a public lot. I didn't walk to the front door. I went to the alley in the back. There was a single steel door with a keypad and a camera. I pulled my hoodie up. I didn't hack the keypad. That takes too long. I took out a small canister of compressed air, the kind used to clean keyboards, and sprayed it on the camera lens until it frosted over completely. Then, I used a shim tool to bypass the latch. It took 4 seconds. Inside, the club smelled of stale beer and bleach. The cleaning crew was working the main floor, the vacuum cleaners humming loudly. That was good cover. I moved through the shadows toward the VIP area in the back. I knew the layout of these places. The boss's office is always in the back, away from the noise, usually with a private exit. I found the door marked private. I pressed my ear against it. Voices. 2 men. One was deep and gravelly. Grant. The other was smoother, arrogant. Julian says the husband is snooping, the smooth voice said. He visited the station. Asking questions. Let him ask, Grant laughed. It was the same laugh from the recording. The laugh that haunted my nightmares. He's a soldier, not a cop. He's leaving for Ohio in 2 days. The wife has him on a leash. Just make sure, the smooth voice warned. Victor doesn't want heat. The kid is dead. The money is safe. Keep it that way. I heard a chair scrape. I'm going to check the shipment. You stay here. The smooth voice belonged to someone leaving. I hid behind a stack of crates in the hallway. The door opened. A man in a sharp gray suit walked out. He didn't look like a thug. He looked like a banker. He checked his phone and walked toward the main exit. I waited until he was gone, then I slipped into the office. Grant was sitting behind a mahogany desk, counting a stack of cash. He was huge, bigger than he looked in the photos. Arms like tree trunks, tattoos climbing up his neck. He didn't hear me enter. I closed the door softly and clicked the lock. Can I help you? He asked without looking up, assuming I was staff. You missed a spot, I said. Grant looked up. His eyes widened when he saw me. He recognized me. Not from the funeral, but from the dossier they surely had on me. Hunter, he growled, reaching for the drawer. Gun. I didn't hesitate. I threw a heavy glass ashtray from the side table. It smashed into his hand just as he gripped the pistol. He roared in pain, dropping the gun. I vaulted over the desk. I didn't punch him. Punching hurts your hands. I drove my elbow into his throat. He gagged and fell back into his chair, gasping for air. I grabbed his hair and slammed his face into the mahogany desk. Thud. That's for the first cut, I whispered. He tried to fight back, swinging a massive fist. I ducked, caught his arm, and twisted it until the shoulder joint popped with a sickening wet snap. He screamed, but I covered his mouth with my hand. Shoo, I hissed. We're just talking. I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording. The sound of him laughing while my son died filled the room. Grant's eyes went wide with terror. He stopped fighting. He knew. Who is Victor? I asked, pressing the blade of my knife against his intact hand. Go to hell, he wheezed. I pushed the blade down. Just a little. Wrong answer. Okay. Okay, he cried out, sweat pouring down his face. Victor Vane. He runs the port. He runs everything. Why did you kill my son? He saw the ledger. Grant stammered. The kid, he was delivering food. He walked into the wrong warehouse. He saw your wife handing off the money bags to Victor. He took photos. The world stopped spinning. My wife? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Natalie was there? She's the courier, Grant gasped. She's been moving cash for Victor for 2 years. The kid found out. He threatened to tell you. Victor said, handle it. Your wife stood right there and nodded. I felt like I had been shot. The betrayal wasn't just silence. It was active. She knew. She was there. She authorized it. Where is the video? I asked. You said he took photos. The phone. Grant cried. We took the kid's phone. Victor has it. In his safe at the shipyard office. I pulled the knife away. Grant slumped in the chair, cradling his broken arm. I told you everything. Let me go. I'm not the police, Grant, I said coldly. I don't make deals. I didn't kill him. Not yet. Dead men can't testify. I grabbed a roll of duct tape from his desk. I taped him to the chair, arms, legs, chest. I taped his mouth shut. Then I grabbed his phone. I unlocked it using his Face ID while he glared at me. I scrolled through his texts. There was a thread with N. Natalie. N, is it done? Dated the night Evan died. Grant. Cleaned up. Don't worry. N. Hunter is asking questions. I'm taking him to Ohio. I stared at the screen. The woman I had slept next to for 20 years. The mother of my child. She had signed his death warrant. I looked at Grant. You're going to stay here until the police arrive. Not Julian. The real police. The FBI. I took a picture of him. Tied up, broken, terrified, and sent it to Victor's number, which I found in Grant's contacts. Then I sent a text. I'm coming for you. I walked out of the club. The sun was shining, but all I could see was red. I wasn't going to Ohio. I was going to the shipyard. My phone buzzed in my pocket as I sped away from the club. It wasn't a text. It was a notification from my home security system, the real one I had installed in the vents, not the one connected to the internet. Motion detected, master bedroom. Natalie. She was searching. She wasn't just packing. She was looking for something. Probably the SD card she suspected I might have found. She was scrubbing the house clean of her sins. I ignored it. She could search all she wanted. The card was in my pocket, and I was miles away, driving straight into the mouth of the beast. The Vane shipyards were located at the edge of the industrial district, a sprawling maze of rusted shipping containers, towering cranes, and dark water. It was private property, fenced off with razor wire and patrolled by private security contractors who looked more like mercenaries than rent-a-cops. I parked my truck a mile out, hidden in a thicket of overgrown weeds. I killed the lights and the engine. I wasn't going in blind. I pulled up the satellite imagery on my laptop. The shipyard was a fortress. The main office, where Grant said the safe was, sat in the center, an elevated glass box overlooking the docks. It was the high ground. The kill box. I checked my gear. My tactical knife. A set of night vision goggles I'd kept as a souvenir. A silenced pistol I'd taken from a dead insurgent years ago, untraceable. I prayed I wouldn't have to use it. Gunshots bring police, and police bring Detective Julian. I moved through the perimeter fence where the ground had eroded near a drainage pipe. I slid under the chain link, the wet mud soaking my chest. Inside, the yard was a ghost town of shadows and steel. Floodlights swept across the rows of containers in a predictable pattern. Sweep. Pause. Sweep. I timed it. I moved in the dark intervals. 10 seconds of sprinting. 5 seconds of cover. I reached the base of the central tower. 2 guards stood by the heavy steel door. They were smoking, their assault rifles slung lazily over their shoulders. They were relaxed. Arrogant. They thought they were the predators here. I picked up a loose bolt from the ground and tossed it hard against a metal container 30 yards to their left. Clang. What was that? One guard snapped, raising his rifle. Probably a rat. Place is full of M, the other muttered, but he walked over to check. The moment they separated, I moved. I came up behind the remaining guard. I didn't make a sound. I wrapped my arm around his windpipe and squeezed. A blood choke. It cuts off oxygen to the brain. He was unconscious in 6 seconds. I dragged him into the shadows and zip-tied his hands and feet. The second guard came back, shining his flashlight. "Mike, quit screwing around." He walked right past me. I stepped out and struck the nerve cluster in his neck with the butt of my pistol. He dropped like a sack of cement. I took his keycard. I slipped inside the building. The air conditioning was humming. I took the stairs, skipping the elevator. Elevators are coffins. The top floor was silent. Victor's office. I swiped the keycard. The lock clicked green. I pushed the door open, leading with my weapon. The office was empty. It was lavish, leather furniture, expensive art, a panoramic view of the dark harbor. And there, in the corner, was the wall safe. Grant had given me the combination under duress, but people like Victor change codes daily. I didn't bother with the keypad. I pulled a small, high-torque drill from my pack. I wasn't going to crack the code. I was going to drill the locking pins. Metal screeched against metal, a low whine that sounded like a scream in the quiet room. I pressed harder. Sweat dripped into my eyes. Click. The handle spun. The heavy door swung open. Inside were stacks of cash, passports, and a black velvet bag. I grabbed the bag. Inside was an iPhone. Evan's iPhone. The screen was cracked, dried blood smeared on the case. My hands shook as I held it. I pressed the power button. Dead battery. I plugged it into my portable power bank. The Apple logo appeared. Come on. Come on. It booted up. I knew his passcode. 0-4-0-7. His birthday. I opened the Photos app. There it was. A video, taken 2 days ago. I pressed play. The video was shaky. It was filmed through a gap in some crates. In the frame, I saw my wife, Natalie. She was handing a heavy duffel bag to a man in a white suit. "Victor, it's all there," Natalie said. Her voice was clear. "Clean money. Hunter suspects nothing." "Good girl," Victor smiled, stroking her cheek. "You're a natural. Nat, shame about the boy, though. If he keeps snooping." "He won't," Natalie interrupted. "I'll handle Evan. Just don't hurt him." "Handle him," Victor warned. "Or I will." The video cut out. I lowered the phone. A tear finally escaped my eye, hot and angry. She didn't order the hit, but she delivered him to the slaughter. She chose the money over our son. She chose fear over loyalty. Suddenly, the office lights blazed on. Blindly bright. Impressive, a voice boomed. I spun around, leveling my pistol. Victor was standing in the doorway. He wasn't alone. 6 men with submachine guns stood behind him, forming a wall of lead. "You're good, Hunter," Victor said, smoothing his white suit. "Grant told me you were coming. Did you really think you could walk into my house and steal from me?" I looked at the window. It was thick, reinforced glass. 50-foot drop. No exit. "I have the video," I said, holding up the phone. "It's already uploading to the cloud." Victor laughed. "No signal in here, soldier. Faraday cage built into the walls. Nothing goes out unless I say so." He snapped his fingers. His men raised their weapons. "Put the gun down," Victor commanded. "And maybe I'll let you die quickly. Like your son." I looked at the phone. I looked at Victor. I smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile. "You think I'm trapped in here with you?" I whispered, my thumb hovering over a detonator switch on my belt I hadn't touched yet. "You're trapped in here with me. You watch too many movies, Hunter," Victor sneered. He took a step forward, confident, untouchable. "There's no cavalry coming. No backup. Just you, me, and 6 bullets with your name on them." My thumb rested on the small black switch on my belt. He thought it was a detonator for a bomb. It wasn't. "I don't need cavalry," I said calmly. I pressed the switch. It wasn't an explosion. It was darkness. I had cut the main power line to the building 5 minutes before I entered the office. I had set a timer on a small thermite charge attached to the junction box in the basement. The office plunged into pitch blackness. The sudden shift from blinding light to absolute zero visibility caused their eyes to lag. But not mine. I had already flipped my night vision goggles down. The room exploded into green hues. "Hold fire. Hold fire," Victor screamed, panic cracking his smooth voice. You'll hit me. Too late. I was already moving. I didn't shoot. The flash would blind me. I moved like smoke. I slid across the polished floor, coming in low. I kicked the knee of the nearest gunman. Snap! He went down screaming. I grabbed his falling body and used him as a shield as the others opened fire. Bang, bang, bang. Muzzle flashes lit up the room like strobe lights, disorienting them further. I fired 2 shots. Uft, uft. 2 guards dropped, clutching their legs. I wasn't killing them. I needed chaos, not corpses. I vaulted over the couch and crashed through the heavy oak door into the hallway, sprinting for the stairs. Get him! Victor roared from the darkness. Kill him! I flew down the stairwell, taking steps 3 at a time. My heart was a piston engine, hammering against my ribs. I had the phone. I had the evidence. Now I just needed to survive. I burst out the side exit into the cool night air. The shipyard alarms were blaring now, a deafening siren that echoed off the water. I ran toward the perimeter fence. I could hear heavy boots pounding the pavement behind me. There, by the containers. Bullets sparked against the metal crates next to my head. Ping, ping. I dove behind a forklift. I was pinned. 3 guards were advancing, rifles raised. I checked my magazine. 4 rounds left. I took a breath. Aim small, miss small. Then, a pair of headlights blinded me. A car screeched around the corner, drifting through the mud and gravel. It wasn't a security vehicle. It was a beat-up sedan. The passenger door flew open. Get in, a voice screamed. I didn't ask questions. I sprinted for the car, diving into the passenger seat just as the rear window shattered from gunfire. The car peeled out, tires smoking, fishtailing toward the gate. I looked at the driver. It was Detective Julian. I raised my gun to his head instantly. Stop the car. Put that away, you idiot. Julian yelled, swerving to avoid a closing security gate. He smashed through the wooden arm, windshield cracking. I'm saving your life. You covered up my son's murder. I roared, pressing the barrel into his temple. Give me one reason not to paint this car with your brains. I didn't cover it up. Julian shouted, sweat flying off his face. I was building a RICO case. I've been investigating Victor for 2 years. If I arrested those thugs for a simple murder, they would have lawyered up and walked in a week. I needed the big fish. I needed Victor. I froze. You were waiting. I was protecting the investigation. Julian slammed on the brakes as we hit the main road, merging into traffic. He ripped the toothpick out of his mouth and threw it on the dash. I knew they killed your boy. It made me sick, but I couldn't move until I had the link to Victor. And then you showed up, playing Rambo, blowing my whole operation. I lowered the gun slowly. You let me think you were dirty. I had to act dirty. Julian snapped. Victor has eyes everywhere. If he thought I was a good cop, I'd be dead. I had to play the lazy, corrupt detective so he would trust me. He glanced at me, his eyes wild. You have it, don't you? The phone. I patted my pocket. I have it. Good. Julian exhaled, gripping the wheel. Because we can't go to the station. Victor owns the chief. He owns half the precinct. If we bring that phone in, it disappears. Then where are we going? Julian looked in the rearview mirror. Safe house. My ex-wife's cabin in the woods. Nobody knows about it. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. My adrenaline was fading, replaced by a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Julian wasn't the villain. He was just a man playing a different game. My wife, I said quietly. Is she part of your investigation? Julian sighed. A heavy, sad sound. Natalie, she's not a mastermind hunter. She's a victim who made bad choices. She got into debt, gambling, online casinos. Victor bought her debt. He owned her. She started moving money to pay him back. She let him kill Evan. I whispered. She didn't know about the hit, Julian said. I have the wiretaps. After Evan died, she called Victor screaming. She was hysterical. He told her if she didn't shut up and play along, you were next. I stared out the window. It didn't matter. She had brought the devil into our house. We pulled up to a small, dark cabin deep in the woods. Julian killed the engine. We lay low here, he said. Tomorrow, I call the feds. We bypassed the local PD entirely. We got out. The woods were silent, peaceful. I walked up to the porch, my boots crunching on dry leaves. Julian unlocked the door. Go inside, he said. There's whiskey in the cabinet. You look like you need it. I stepped into the dark cabin. I reached for the light switch. Click. The light didn't turn on. Instead, a red laser appeared on Julian's chest. Hunter, drop. I screamed. Thwip. A single, suppressed shot. Julian's head snapped back. He crumpled to the porch, a dark hole in the center of his forehead. I dove to the floor, rolling behind a heavy, overturned table. Come out. Hunter. A voice called from the shadows of the living room. It was a woman's voice. Shaking. Terrified. But holding a gun. I peered over the edge of the table. Natalie was standing there. She was holding a pistol with both hands, tears streaming down her face. Behind her stood 3 of Victor's men. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. He made me choose. It was you or me. She had sold me out. Again, the smell of gunpowder hung in the air, sharp and metallic. Julian lay on the porch, staring up at the moon with dead eyes. The only friend I had left in this city was gone, and the woman I loved was holding the smoking gun. Drop it, Natalie, I said. My voice wasn't loud. It was the low, terrifying rumble of a tank engine idling. I can't, she screamed, the pistol shaking in her hands. Victor said. He said if I kill you, he wipes the debt. He lets me live. The 3 men behind her stepped into the light. They were professionals. Body armor. Suppressors. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to supervise the execution. Do it, lady, the lead guard growled. Or we kill you both and burn this cabin down. I looked at Natalie. I looked into the eyes of the woman who had held my hand while I deployed, the woman who had birthed my son. I searched for a shred of the person I used to know. I found nothing. Just fear. Selfish, consuming fear. You already killed our son, I said, sliding my hand toward the spare magazine on my belt. Are you going to kill his father too? I didn't kill Evan, she sobbed. I just looked away. Looking away is the same thing as pulling the trigger. Her hand wavered. The barrel of the gun dipped. That was my window. The lead guard saw her hesitation. Useless cow, he muttered, raising his rifle to shoot her in the back of the head. I moved. I didn't shoot Natalie. I shot the man behind her. Pop, pop. 2 rounds to the chest. He dropped before his finger could squeeze the trigger. The other 2 guards reacted instantly, opening fire. The cabin exploded into chaos. Wood splinters flew like shrapnel. Bullets tore through the couch, the walls, the air. I dove low, sliding across the floorboards. I wasn't just a soldier. I was a ghost in the dark. I kicked the legs out from under the second guard, sending him crashing onto the coffee table. I finished him with a knife strike to the collarbone. Silent. Permanent. The third guard panicked. He grabbed Natalie by the hair, using her as a human shield, pressing his gun to her temple. Drop it, he screamed at me. I'll paint the wall with her. Natalie shrieked, clawing at his arm. I stood up slowly, blood dripping from a graze on my cheek. I held my pistol at my side. Let her go, I said. Drop the gun, the guard yelled, pressing the barrel harder into her skin. I looked at Natalie. She was looking at me, begging. Save me. I raised my gun. I didn't aim at the guard's head. That was too small a target with a hostage moving around. I aimed at Natalie's shoulder. Bang. The bullet went clean through the meat of her shoulder and hit the guard in the chest behind her. It was a calculated shot. A through and through. Painful, but not lethal for her. Deadly for him. The guard groaned and collapsed. Natalie fell to her knees, clutching her bleeding shoulder, screaming in shock. The room went silent. 3 dead men. 1 dead cop outside. And a wife who had lost everything. I walked over to her. I didn't offer her a hand. I didn't comfort her. I kicked the gun away from her reach. Get up, I ordered. You shot me, she gasped, looking at the blood seeping through her fingers. Hunter, you shot me. You tried to kill me, I said coldly. We're even. Get up. I dragged her to her feet. She was sobbing, trembling, slipping on the blood-slicked floor. Where are we going? She cried. The hospital? Please, I need a doctor. We're going home, I said. You have one more job to do. I dragged her out to Julian's car. I pushed his body aside. I would come back for him later to give him a proper burial, and shoved Natalie into the passenger seat. I drove fast. The city lights blurred past us. Natalie cried the whole way, a pathetic, broken sound. I felt nothing. My heart was a stone. We arrived at our house. It looked normal. The lawn was mowed. The porch light was on. It was a perfect suburban lie. I marched her into the kitchen. I sat her down at the table, right where we used to eat breakfast as a family. I tossed a first aid kit onto the table. Wrap it, I said. If you pass out, I'll wake you up with ammonia. While she bandaged her wound with shaking hands, I set up my laptop. I connected it to the Bluetooth speakers in the living room. What are you doing? She whispered. I'm setting the stage, I said. I pulled up the contact for Victor on her phone. You're going to call him? I said. No. She shook her head, terrified. He'll know. He'll know you're alive. He thinks his men killed me. I corrected her. He thinks you're the only one left. You're going to call him and tell him it's done. You're going to tell him you want your freedom. He won't believe me. He will, I said, leaning close to her face. Because you're going to sound exactly as scared as you are right now. You're going to tell him you have the SD card, the one Evan died for. You're going to tell him you want to trade it for your life. I don't have the card, she stammered. I do, I said. But he doesn't know that. I dialed the number and put it on speaker. It rang once. Is it done? Victor's voice. Smooth. Arrogant. I pointed at Natalie. Speak. Yes, she choked out. Yes, Victor. It's done. Hunter is dead. Julian is dead. There was a pause. Good. And the men? They left. She lied, reading the script I had written on a napkin. They said the job was finished. But Victor, I have the card. I found it in Hunter's pocket. Silence. The line crackled. Bring it to me, Victor said. No, Natalie said, her voice trembling with real fear. No more warehouses. No more docks. I want to meet in public. Neutral ground. Or I upload it to the FBI. Victor laughed. A low, dangerous sound. You're developing a spine, Nat cute. Where? I wrote a location on the napkin. The old rail yard. Sector 4. The old rail yard, she said. Sector 4. In 1 hour. Alone. I'll be there, Victor said. But Nat? If you're playing games, I'll peel your skin off. The line went dead. Natalie dropped the phone. She looked at me, her face pale, her eyes hollow. He's going to kill me, she whispered. He's going to try, I said, checking the magazine of my pistol. But he's not walking into a meeting. He's walking into a funeral. I grabbed my gear bag. Let's go, I said. It's time to end this. The old rail yard was a graveyard of steel. Rusted locomotives sat on overgrown tracks like the carcasses of dead beasts, their windows shattered and their engines silent. The wind whistled through the gaps in the metal, sounding like a low moan. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Or an execution. I parked the car a mile out. We walked the rest of the way in the dark. Natalie stumbled over the railroad ties, clutching her bandaged shoulder. She was shivering, but not from the cold. He's going to kill me, she whispered for the 10th time. He's not going to trade. He's going to take the card and shoot me. He definitely plans to, I said calmly, checking the charge on my night vision goggles. That's why you're standing here. I positioned her in the center of a clearing, under a single, flickering halogen light that buzzed overhead. It was a spotlight. A stage. You want me to stand in the light? She gasped. I'm a sitting duck. You're the bait, Natalie. Bait has to be seen. I handed her a small, empty plastic case. Hold this. Act like it's the SD card. Don't move. Don't run. If you run, you step out of my line of sight. And if you step out of my line of sight, I can't save you. Where will you be? She asked, looking around the pitch-black yard. Everywhere, I said. and then I vanished. I didn't hide behind a box. I climbed. I scaled the side of a rusted coal car, settling into the shadows 20 feet above the ground. From here, I could see everything. I had the high ground. I had the angles. 10 minutes later, they arrived. I felt them before I saw them. The vibration of heavy engines rumbling through the tracks. Then, the blinding beams of headlights cut through the darkness. 3 SUVs. Black. Armored. They rolled into the yard like sharks entering a reef. They parked in a semicircle around Natalie, trapping her against a train car. Doors opened. Boots hit the gravel. 12 men. Victor didn't come alone. He brought a platoon. He wasn't taking chances. The men fanned out, weapons raised. AR-15s. Shotguns. They scanned the perimeter. They were looking for a threat, but they were looking at eye level. They forgot to look up. Finally, the back door of the middle SUV opened. Victor stepped out. He looked impeccable in a gray suit, a cashmere coat draped over his shoulders. He didn't look like a thug. He looked like a CEO. He walked toward Natalie, smiling. "Natalie," he said, spreading his hands. "You look terrible, darling. Rough night. Just give me the deal," Natalie stammered, holding up the plastic case. "I give you this. You let me walk." That was the agreement. Victor laughed. It was a dry, soulless sound. "Oh, Nat, you know how business works. Agreements are for people with leverage. You have none." He snapped his fingers. 2 of his men stepped forward, aiming their rifles at her chest. "Give me the card," Victor said, his voice dropping to a growl. "And I'll make it quick." Natalie sobbed, backing up against the train. "You promised." "I lied," Victor smirked. "Grab it." One of the guards reached for the case. Click. The sound wasn't a gun. It was the breaker box on the nearby pole that I had rigged with a remote switch. The single halogen light above them popped and died. Total darkness. For 3 seconds, the yard was pitch black. "Lights. Get the flashlights." Victor screamed. Beam after beam cut through the dark, dancing wildly. But in those 3 seconds, I had moved. I dropped from the top of the train car, landing silently behind the 2 guards closest to the rear SUV. I didn't use a gun. A gun has a muzzle flash. A muzzle flash gives away your position. I used a karambit, a curved tactical knife. Slash. Slash. 2 men dropped, clutching their hamstrings, unable to stand. They screamed, but the sound echoed off the metal trains, making it impossible to pinpoint the source. "Contact rear," one guard yelled, spinning around and firing blindly into the dark. Rat-a-tat-tat. Sparks flew off the steel wheels. "Cease fire, you idiots." Victor roared, crouching behind his car door. "You're shooting at shadows." "There's someone out there," the guard yelled. I heard thwip. I fired a single shot from my suppressed pistol from beneath the train car. The guard's flashlight exploded in his hand. He dropped the light, terrified. He's everywhere. Now, the fear set in. That primal, animal fear of the dark. They were trained to fight men. They weren't trained to fight a ghost. I moved again, flanking right. I grabbed a loose metal pipe and threw it hard against a fuel tank on the left side. Clang. All 10 remaining guns turned left and opened fire. The deafening roar of automatic gunfire filled the yard. They shredded the fuel tank. While they were distracted, I sprinted across the gap to the right. I came up behind a guard using the train wheel for cover. I grabbed his ankle and yanked. He slammed face first into the gravel. 1 punch to the temple. "Lights out. Stop shooting." Victor was screaming now, his voice cracking. "He's baiting you. Group up. Defensive circle." The remaining men huddled around Victor's SUV, backs to each other, rifles pointing out. The Alamo formation. I smiled in the dark. Perfect. I pulled a small, round object from my vest. A flashbang. I tossed it. It rolled across the gravel and stopped right under the SUV. "Grenade," one of them screamed. Boom. A blinding white flash and a concussion wave that rattled teeth. It didn't kill them, but it disoriented them completely. Their ears were ringing. Their eyes were useless white spots. I stepped into the light of their headlights. I didn't run. I walked. I shot the tires of the SUV. Pop, 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 pop. No escape. I shot the weapons out of the hands of the two men still trying to aim. My aim was surgical. I wasn't panicked. I was working. The men were stumbling, blind and deaf. I walked past them, striking with precise, calculated blows. A kneecap here. A solar plexus there. I wasn't killing them. I was disabling them, leaving them writhing in the dirt. Within 60 seconds, the army was gone. Just a pile of groaning bodies and useless weapons. Only one man was left standing. Victor. He was leaning against the car, rubbing his eyes, trying to clear his vision. He held a small silver pistol, waving it wildly. "Show yourself," he screamed. "Show yourself, you coward." I stepped out of the smoke, 10 feet in front of him. I lowered my gun. "I'm right here," I said. Victor froze. He blinked, his vision clearing enough to see me. He saw the tactical gear, the blood on my knuckles, the cold, dead look in my eyes. He raised his gun to shoot me. I didn't flinch. "Look at your chest, Victor." He looked down. A single red laser that was dancing over his heart. It wasn't a sniper. It was a laser sight I had taped to the railing of the train car behind me, aimed at a fixed point. It was a bluff. A simple, 50-cent laser pointer. But Victor didn't know that. He thought I had a sniper team. He dropped the gun. It clattered on the stones. "Okay," Victor breathed, raising his hands. "Okay, you won. Let's talk. Money? I have millions. You want your wife? Take her. Just, let's make a deal." I walked up to him. I kicked his gun away. "I don't want your money," I said, grabbing him by the lapels of his expensive coat. I slammed him against the side of the SUV. "And I don't want a deal." I leaned in close, so he could smell the gunpowder on me. "I want you to feel what my son felt. Helplessness." Victor wasn't tough. Without his army, without his guns, without his money, he was just a man in a dirty suit. He trembled in my grip, his eyes darting around for help that wasn't coming. "Please," he whimpered. "I can give you names. I can give you politicians. Judges. I run this city." "You ran this city," I corrected him. I spun him around and zip-tied his wrists behind his back. I didn't be gentle. I pulled the plastic ties until they bit into his skin. He yelped. I dragged him over to where Natalie was still crouching, clutching her fake SD card. She looked up at me, then at Victor. Her face was a mask of shock. She had expected to die. She hadn't expected to see the monster who owned her life reduced to a shivering prisoner. "Get up," I told her. "Open the trunk." She scrambled to obey, popping the trunk of Victor's own armored SUV. I shoved Victor inside. He curled up, trying to protect his head. "Where are you taking me?" "The police." "Julian is dead. You have no witnesses." "I don't need witnesses," I said, slamming the trunk shut. I turned to Natalie. "Get in the car. You drive." "Me?" She blinked. "Where?" "To the one place he thinks he's safe." We drove back to the city, straight to the Vane Tower, Victor's corporate headquarters. It was a glass needle piercing the skyline, a monument to his ego. We parked in the underground garage. I marched Victor and Natalie into the private elevator. I used Victor's thumb, pressing it forcibly against the sensor, to unlock the penthouse floor. The elevator doors opened into a sprawling office that looked more like a palace. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. The lights of the harbor twinkled below, the same harbor where my son died. I threw Victor into his leather chair. I tied him to it with duct tape, just like I had done to Grant. "What is this?" Victor spat, trying to regain some composure now that he was back in his domain. "You going to torture me here?" "My security will do a sweep in 10 minutes. "Your security is busy," I said, walking over to his massive computer desk. "They're dealing with a fire at the shipyard." I said it on the way out. I sat down at his computer. "Password." Victor sneered. "Go to hell." I didn't hit him. I didn't have to. I pulled the real SD card, the one from the storm drain, out of my pocket. I held it up. "This little chip," I said, "doesn't just have audio of my son's murder." I checked the rest of the files. Evan was smart. He didn't just record the killing. He had been recording everything for weeks. He recorded Natalie talking about the offshore accounts. He recorded you ordering the hit on the union leader last month. Victor's face went pale. That's inadmissible. Obtained illegally. I'm not going to court, Victor. I plugged the card into his computer. Then I plugged in a flash drive of my own. I'm hacking your system, I said, typing furiously. But I'm not stealing your money. That's too easy. I hit enter. A progress bar appeared on the massive wall-mounted screen. Uploading to irs.gov/fbi.gov/darkweb_leaks. What are you doing? Victor screamed, struggling against the tape. I'm sending your entire ledger. Every bribe, every murder, every laundered dollar, to the 3 groups of people who will hate you the most, I said calmly. The FBI will arrest you. That's prison. The IRS will strip you. That's poverty. But the dark web leak? That goes to the cartels you've been ripping off for years. That's death. Victor's eyes bulged. No, you can't. They'll kill my family. They'll kill everyone. Now you know how it feels, I said. To know your family is in danger and you can't do a damn thing about it. I hit the final key. Sent. The screen flashed green. Transfer complete. His phone on the desk started buzzing instantly. Then the landline. Then his tablet. It was a cacophony of ringtones. That's your empire collapsing, I said. Every partner, every rival, every corrupt cop is seeing your dirty laundry right now. You're radioactive, Victor. Nobody will touch you. Nobody will save you. I stood up and walked over to him. I pulled my knife out. Victor squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the blade. I cut the tape on his left hand. What? What are you doing? He gasped, confused. I placed a single bullet on the desk in front of him. Then I placed his own silver pistol next to it. Empty, except for 1 round I loaded into the chamber. I'm leaving, I said. The police are coming. The cartels are coming. You have about 5 minutes before the first siren gets here. I leaned in close. You can face them. You can rot in a cell for the rest of your life, looking over your shoulder, waiting for a shank. Or, I nodded at the gun. You can take the easy way out. I turned my back on him. It was the ultimate insult. I didn't fear him. He wasn't a threat anymore. He was a ghost. Come on, I said to Natalie. We walked to the elevator. Hunter. Victor screamed behind us. It was a raw, broken sound. You can't leave me like this. Fight me. Finish it. I didn't turn around. I already did. The elevator doors closed. As we descended, I heard a sound from the penthouse above. A single muffled bang. I didn't flinch. He's dead, Natalie whispered, tears streaming down her face. He was dead the minute he touched my son, I said. The elevator reached the lobby. I walked out. Where are we going now? Natalie asked, following me like a lost dog. Are we safe? I stopped at the glass doors. I looked at the reflection of the city. We? I asked. I turned to look at her. There is no we, Natalie. Natalie froze. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a wax statue. What do you mean? I mean the partnership is over, I said. You were useful for the mission. You were the bait. You were the key to Victor. But the mission is done. But I helped you, she cried, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. I saved you at the cabin. I called Victor. I did everything you asked. You did it to save yourself, I said. Not me. Not Evan. Yourself. Sirens were wailing in the distance now, getting closer. Blue and red lights flashed against the glass of the lobby. The police, Natalie gasped. We have to go? Hunter, take me with you. We can go to Ohio. We can start over. I shook my head slowly. I'm not going to Ohio. And neither are you. I pulled a small envelope from my tactical vest and tossed it at her feet. What is this? She asked, her hands shaking so hard she could barely pick it up. It's a copy of the wire transfer you made last week, I said. $50,000 of Victor's money moved into an account in your mother's name. And a printout of the text where you told Grant the best time to handle Evan. She stared at the papers, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. I sent the originals to the district attorney 10 minutes ago, I said, along with the video of you handing the bag to Victor. Hunter, please, she shrieked, falling to her knees. I'm your wife. I'm the mother of your child. You're an accomplice to murder, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. And you're going to prison. The police cruisers screeched to a halt outside. Officers in tactical gear swarmed the entrance, weapons drawn. They weren't Victor's payroll cops. These were state troopers. The feds. The clean ones. Drop the weapon, a megaphone boomed. Hands in the air. I placed my pistol on the floor and kicked it away. I raised my hand slowly. I wasn't resisting. I was done fighting. The doors burst open. Get on the ground. Now, Natalie was sobbing hysterically, curling into a ball. He made me do it. My husband made me do it. I knelt down, interlacing my fingers behind my head. An officer slammed me into the marble floor, cuffing my wrists. You have the right to remain silent. I know, I said calmly. Another team grabbed Natalie. They didn't listen to her screaming. They cuffed her and dragged her out, her heels scraping across the floor. As they hauled her past me, our eyes met one last time. Hunter, she screamed. Why? Why did you do this? Because, I said, looking her dead in the eye. Evan needed a parent. He finally got one. They dragged her away. I watched her go. I felt lighter. The weight was gone. The lead agent, a woman in an FBI windbreaker, pulled me up. She looked at my face, then at the chaos around us. You're Hunter? She asked. We got your data dump. You handed us the biggest crime syndicate on the East Coast on a silver platter. You're welcome, I said. You also left a trail of bodies across the city, she noted, her face stern. Self-defense or not, you're in a lot of trouble, Sergeant. I know, I said. I'm ready to answer for it. She looked at me for a long moment. She saw the exhaustion, the grief. We found Detective Julian's body, she said quietly. We found the audio on your server. He died trying to protect the case. You saved the evidence he died for. I nodded. He was a good cop. In the end. We're taking you in, she said. But, between you and me, with the intel you just gave us, and the circumstances, I think a jury is going to have a hard time convicting a father who was avenging his son. She led me to the car. I sat in the back seat. I didn't look back at the tower. I didn't look back at my wife. I looked up at the sky. It was dawn. The sun was breaking over the horizon, painting the clouds pink and gold. It was a new day, a day without Victor, a day without lies. I closed my eyes and, for the first time since the morgue, I slept. The trial lasted 3 weeks. It was the biggest headline in the state. The Shipyard Massacre, the papers called it. But in the courtroom, it was just quiet, sterile legal work. I sat there every day, wearing a suit that felt too tight, listening to lawyers dissect the worst week of my life. Natalie sat on the other side. She looked small. The prison orange washed her out. She never looked at me. Not once. She cried when they played the tapes. She cried when they showed the photos of the money. But the jury didn't buy the tears. They saw what I saw, a mother who sold her child for a lifestyle. When the verdict came down, the courtroom was dead silent. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit murder. Money laundering. Obstruction of justice. The judge sentenced her to life without parole. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just felt a quiet, heavy door close in my mind. As for me, the jury deliberated for 4 hours. Not guilty by reason of self-defense. The FBI agent had been right. They couldn't convict a father for fighting a war that was brought to his doorstep. I walked out of that courthouse a free man. But freedom is a strange thing when you have nowhere to go. I didn't go back to the house. I couldn't. I sold it. I sold everything. The furniture, the car, the memories. I took the money and donated every cent to a charity for at-risk youth in the city. A scholarship fund in Evan's name. The Evan Hunter Architecture Grant. It was the only way to build something from the ashes. I didn't stay in the city. I bought an old Airstream trailer and a new truck. I drove west. I needed mountains. I needed silence. I stopped counting the days. I stopped counting the miles. One evening, I found myself in a small town in Montana. The air was crisp and smelled of pine. I parked by a lake that was as still as glass. I walked down to the water's edge. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the only thing I had kept from my old life. Evan's medal. A small, cheap participation medal from a soccer tournament when he was 10. He had been so proud of it. I rubbed my thumb over the tarnished medal. "I did it, kid," I whispered to the water. "I got them all. Every single one." I thought I would feel triumphant. I thought revenge would taste sweet. It didn't. It tasted like ash. But it was clean ash. The fire was out. The monsters were gone. I looked at my reflection in the water. The lines on my face were deeper. My hair was grayer. I wasn't the same man who came home from deployment. That man died in the morgue with his son. I am something else now. Not a soldier. Not a husband. Just a keeper of memories. I threw the medal into the lake. It made a small splash, ripples spreading out in perfect circles, disturbing the reflection of the mountains. I watched until the water was still again. I turned around and walked back to my truck. I didn't know where I was going next. Maybe north to Alaska. Maybe south to the desert. It didn't matter. The road was long, and for the first time in a long time, the rearview mirror was empty. No black SUVs. No shadows. Just the open road. I started the engine. The rumble felt good. "Rest easy, Evan. Dad is finally done working." The end. Wow, what a journey. We walked through fire with Hunter, didn't we? It's rare to see a story where justice is this absolute, yet this heartbreaking. I have a question for you all, and be honest. If you were in Hunter's shoes, standing in that office with the button in your hand, would you have given Victor a chance? Or would you have ended it right there? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Also, tell me where you're watching from. It blows my mind to see this community growing from all corners of the world. And one last thing, I want to make content that you want. Do you prefer these intense military revenge thrillers? Or do you want more psychological family dramas? Maybe something with a supernatural twist? Tell me what genre you want next, and I'll make it happen. If this story moved you, please gently hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Until the next epic story, take care of yourselves and hold your loved ones close. You never know when the fight might come to your door. See you soon.